welcome back. This is John.
And it's Eric.
And Ray.
Hey, Ray's here. And it's What If Geeks. And, so we've done a little bit of a switch up. I didn't give you the date last time, but today is December 30th. This is officially the last recording we are doing in 2019.
So
maybe, unless we squeeze in another one. Well, as far as you're concerned, this is like the last one. Yeah. We'll see what we got going on here in a minute. Maybe we'll just sit here and bullshit. So we just recorded our review of The Rise of Skywalker with Paul, and then Paul had to skate out of here, and Ray showed up right in the middle of it, and we said, "Get out! You haven't seen it yet."
You bastard.
Yeah. So.
Don't read
Timing was not what it was.
Don't read the notes if they're near you.
No, I throw them out.
I see all the up-bombs. Okay.
Yeah. So Ray showed up right in the middle of it. I told him to come at a certain time, and he did. And I was like, yeah, well, sorry we ran over as we normally do.
Yeah, we were off by about 45 minutes.
Yeah. Typical for this podcast.
That's right.
But this episode, we are going to review the last episode of The Mandalorian, and then we're going to kind of give an overall of the whole series, just like what our thoughts are and maybe where we're going, projections and that kind of thing. All right, so episode 8, titled Redemption.
Redemption. Hey, we have the title this week.
Hey, that was a good job.
We don't have to Google it and guess it.
I was proud of you.
So Taika Waititi directed this episode. He also did episode 1. Mm-hmm. It is 48 minutes long, so one of the
longest ones, yeah.
Which, as a season finale, makes sense, I suppose.
And it felt like, while you're watching it, it felt like, well, this is
felt
going
longer
on
than 48 minutes, to be honest. There was a lot happening. So we start the show with the scout troopers that had snatched up Yoda, and the Yodelorian. Sorry, not Yoda.
Yes, well, when last we left our little Yodelorian, he was laying in the desert, and 2 biker scouts had shot Quill,
yep.
Or so it seemed. Because I had a theory that maybe you didn't see who shot him officially, so we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, so this biker scout scoops him up, and they run away. So now we're in...
And so they're parked outside Navarro, or outside the city in Navarro, because they're afraid to go inside. And this whole thing is like a comedy skit. It's really amusing. And
it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, so of course.
What did you think?
I thought it was amazing is a good word for it, because this is all new. We have not seen interactions with stormtroopers before ever.
No,
like
and you didn't see it coming. There was a comic series a while back, Tag and Bink.
Yeah,
you guys remember that?
Kevin
one?
Rubio. Yeah, I talked about that on the spoilers.
That's exactly what this reminded me of. I was like, holy shit, if these guys are actually Tag and Bink, I will die laughing.
Right.
Even if they're not, it's certainly a throwback to... Well, it seems like a throwback to that, where those two always made accidental or idiotic decisions that would like change the course of events in the universe.
And it would benefit the rebels. Yeah. There's 2 stormtroopers that just happen to benefit the rebels every time they make a decision. And it's just that their interaction back and forth on this episode seemed very akin to the comic books that Tag and Bink are in.
And so Favreau has comedic roots with the original movies he did, right? Including Elf, I guess, not just the original movies. And then Taika Waititi also has some comedic roots. So to have those two as director and producer do this little upfront, I thought it was hilarious, man.
It was amazing.
Other than the baby punching, which was really unnecessary.
That was still fucking funny. I'm sorry.
So for those that don't know, those 2 scout troopers, although you never see their face, those are actually 2 comedians, because Favreau loves to cast comedians in every episode if he can. So it's Jason Sudeikis and Adam Pally. Sudeikis was in like Horrible Bosses 2.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall, right?
Was he in that one?
I think so. I think he's the boyfriend.
Yeah, you might be right. I can't remember.
Sure. I only know it because it's Kristen Bell.
I see. And then Adam, he did Saturday Night Live. I think he did like a sitcom thing. I don't really remember. But,
really funny guy.
So both of them end up punching the baby, though, which on the internet has become a thing, right? Where people are saying that they're pissed off or whatever. I don't think it's real. I'm not sure if it's real. I feel like it's hard today to tell when people are outraged and when people are being sarcastic about something.
I haven't seen any of the...
Or ironic.
quote-unquote outrage that people are complaining about or that people are reporting about. People are reporting that the internet is going nuts against these two or this specific trooper for punching the baby, which I find even funnier. But I haven't seen any actual...
I have actually seen some Twitter commentary. Most of it, though, seemed joking. It was like, Jason Sudeikis should go to jail for the rest of his life kind of thing. Like, oh, yeah, that's just a fun
I mean,
point.
I was going to say, like, someone might want to put, like, a watch on Jason Sudeikis just to save him from the random fan that might go after his ass.
But so, I mean, what you ultimately end with after their little comedy bit, and there's a shooting thing where they go back to that trope again of stormtroopers can't hit anything, right. And they're trying to shoot a piece of junk that's like seriously like 10 yards away from them, and they can't hit it.
Neither one of them for 5 minutes.
It wasn't Forgetting Sarah Marshall. He was in The Millers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah.
I keep picturing this other dude. I'll figure out who the fuck that guy is. But yeah, so it's the guy from We Are the Millers. He's amazing. All right, never mind. Much better than the Forgetting Sarah Marshall guy. I'm sorry.
That's all right. So ultimately what you're leading up to here, though, is for IG-11 to show up.
Yes.
And goddamn if he doesn't just wreck these dudes. It is hilarious. The way he body slams that trooper. And
Jason Segel. That's why. All right. I forgive myself now. Sorry.
The way he body slams that trooper into the front end of the speeder bike.
Oh my god, yeah. Well, he's like, I am this being's nurse droid. Wait, you what? And then he just goes wreck shop on their ass. It was amazing.
I would say I called this on the social media that he was coming back to wreck some stormtroopers and do something else, which I won't mention right this minute.
Did call out. I said I did. I'll admit I was wrong on this one because I was last episode when we reviewed it. You weren't here, right?
No.
I said the last shots that you see is just them flying after him, and then you see Quill laying on the ground smoking, and then not a cigarette. He was dead. Then the only other shot you see is the painter's palette later,
right.
The credits of them shooting at him, right?
Right.
I said, what if that's a setup, and it was actually IG-11 that shot him, and Mando was right the whole time, and he did not go against his programming. But then I said, I was like, it's up in the air, but it's a theory. And when I said it, it was funny because Paul was like, oh shit, I didn't even think about that. So there's there was a chance I was right. I was wrong, and I admit it. So see there, internet, I can admit I'm wrong. I've been married 3 times. I know how that's done. You're welcome.
So we flip to Mando, Karga, and Cara pinned down in the cantina, which was where we basically left them at the end of episode 7, right? And Moff Gideon has his troops bring out this E-Web cannon, which was a throwback Easter egg to Empire Strikes Back. Because they used that big-ass cannon to, like, hold down the Falcon on the Hoth, attack on Hoth or whatever.
Right.
But that showed up. That gun has showed up in various video games and stuff. It's always like a OP weapon that's, like, way too
Something's
powerful.
about to fuck something up.
Yeah. So it's a cool thing to throw in there. And then, his is supposedly a modified one that's even more deadly. Or that's the way he puts it off. Anyway. Yeah. I think that there may be some sense to that, and I'll get to that in a minute.
I appreciated it. He came across... I'll wait. Go ahead, keep going.
Okay, so in this scene, it's essentially it's a Western standoff almost, but they're using it to drop so much information on you so quickly. Like all this stuff comes out. Like so, Cara is from Cara Dune is from Alderaan, right?
And okay, so it's all coming from Moff Gideon
for the most part.
That was the point. It's proving that he's done his homework and he knows who he's dealing with.
Right.
Yeah, and well, more than that, which
it very much came across as a. He struck me as a. Oh fuck! It's gone. The blue dude.
Mithril. What? Which
no.
Oh, Thrawn.
Thrawn. It struck me as that type. Like Thrawn was the type of general to do his homework. Admiral Thrawn did his homework, right? He studied artwork and he kind of figured out the species, whatever. That's what this reminded me of for a minute. Like, well, this guy's like really like, you don't see that a lot. You just see these moths that are just like, behold my power, bang.
Yep.
This guy's like, yeah, watch this shit. I know who you are. I know who you are. I know you, and I know everything about you. Fuck you. That really, it was cool. So it was a nice little nod to, yeah, we're not just a bunch of bullshit. We can kind of get our shit done.
And he's certainly not like any other Moff. He doesn't wear the gray uniform. He's got some crazy battle armor.
Very reminiscent of Darth Vader.
I was about to say that. Yeah,
in a way, very reminiscent of Darth Vader.
That'll come into play later.
This leads into something later on.
So what else gets dropped here? That Karga was a magistrate. It's not clear whether he was a Republic or an Imperial, but since he says he was a disgraced magistrate, I'm going to assume he was Imperial aligned.
Sure.
So, magistrates, there are a handful of them mentioned in the movies, but they're always like very high political power positions. So It's kind of interesting that Karga held one of those at some point. I don't know where he was or what he did. Maybe he was on Navarro. Maybe he was a magistrate for this planet or something. But for him to go from some really high Imperial position to leader of a bounty hunters guild when the Empire fell, it's an interesting concept, and you have to wonder what he did in that time frame.
Well, he's definitely a survivor.
This episode is titled Redemption, though, and you don't know whose redemption, because it's certainly not Mando's. Whose redemption is it, and does it have multiple meanings here? Because that might be one of them.
Probably.
Karga has maybe been an Imperial magistrate at some point. He's definitely leader of the Bounty Hunter Guild that wanted to kill Mando and take the baby back. And now he's going to flip a switch.
And it definitely wasn't until the end of last episode that you saw him change sides because of Yodelorian.
Yep.
Yodelay-hee-hoo.
So, Mando's name is revealed here, which we already knew because of that interview that Pedro Pascal did prior to the show's launch, where he accidentally said it. And it somehow never got mentioned again. Like, nobody ever brought it up. Like, hey, do you remember when you said that name? Like,
it's because the Disney assassins.
Yeah, probably. They were out there like, I dare you to ask that fucking question. Yeah. We will sue the pants off you.
Mickey came out.
But
I'm gonna choke the shit out of you. What?
In any case, we heard it, but we never knew how to spell it. So now we actually have a legit spelling of it because of the subtitles in the show. So there's that at least.
Din Djarin?
Yeah, Din Djarin. Yeah, I'm not sure. I was wondering how they pick some of these names, because some of them have sort of callbacks to other things, like Fennec Shan, like Fox. Okay, fine, that works. Mm-hmm. Toro, Bull. Okay. Is there something here in Din Djarin? I mean, is this supposed to be like... It reminds me of...
Genie.
Yeah, it reminds me of... Yeah, it's exactly what it reminds me of. Jin, yeah. I don't know if that's what it is, but...
Sure.
And then Mando lets loose after Gideon tells his name and everything. I think we get a cut between, and it comes back after the childhood flashback. But in any case, I'll just mention it now. When he comes back, he says, hey, I know Gideon was an ISB officer. What the hell's ISB stand for? Because I forgot. Imperial Security Bureau.
There you go.
He's like, I know Moff Gideon was an ISB officer because that's the only way he could possibly know my name. That had to have come from the registers of Mandalore during the Siege of Mandalore. And then Gideon mentions the Night of 1,000 Tears, which we don't know what these things are yet. But Filoni did 2 panels at the San Diego Comic-Con, one for the Clone Wars and one for Ahsoka. And in those, between them, he talked about Season 7 of the Clone Wars, focusing on the Siege of Mandalore as part of the storyline.
Uh-huh.
So they're now making a connection between this live action and leading up to a Clone Wars thing to try to go get people to watch it, but at the same time they're going to tie the stories together, which isn't surprising. I mean, Filoni created Rebels and Clone Wars. He introduced the Mandalorian stuff in Clone Wars, then he brought it into Rebels, and now he's a co-producer on Mandalorian. So
it all ties together, and you're going to watch it all.
Yeah, and I love that they're tying it all together. And you don't have to know everything to understand.
But we'll get more into that after
yeah.
Because I got to tell you the end result of this whole thing.
So one thing I wanted to say was that just from books, like the books that come out after the movies, like the canon source books or whatever that tell you a bunch of information, the ISB had 2 divisions that were part of it. One of them was a special operations division, and one of them was advanced weapons research. So I think this at least gives an excuse for Moff to have death troopers, incinerator troopers, the E-Web cannon modified, the modified TIE
all
Fighter.
this shit from there,
right?
yeah.
It makes sense that since he was an ISB officer, probably very high up if he oversaw a siege on a planet of Mandalorians, that he would have access to all this stuff after the fall of the Empire because there was nobody to, challenge him. He's like, hey, we've got all this stuff going. Let's do our own thing.
Anyway, you want to chime in, right? Just
I'm following along. Yeah. I saw the episode. It's funny. I've never watched Clone Wars. I've never watched Rebels.
We'll get into that.
So
too.
So I guess it's important to note for anybody else that has a lot of the callbacks in this particular episode
are specifically to
Clone Wars and Rebels. And if you haven't seen them, you're going to miss stuff. So I will make sure to describe those things when we get to them. In fact, one of them's coming up right now. So
well, then I'll just instead of saving it to the end, what I'll do, I'll say by the end of this episode. My wife immediately went and started watching episodes 1 and 2 of the episodic saga, right? Again, and then she's starting to try to watch it all in order now. So she's watching those two, and then she watched the Clone Wars animated movie that was out, and now we're in the episodes of the series.
So maybe we can put a list out for people because the unfortunate part about how it's done is that there are several episodes in Season 2 of Clone Wars that go over this material, and then it hops forward, and there's a little bit in Season 4, and there's a little bit in Season 5,
yes.
and then you get a little bit in
someone
Rebels.
released a
4 episodes
chronological...
Yeah?
Like, someone released a chronological order where you can watch them and it would make more sense. But we're just watching
There's a
them
lot
as
to
they came
cover,
out.
but on some episodes, it's just like a flashback or a mention of something. You don't even get like a real piece of the story, and it's like putting puzzle pieces together.
But I will say this: thanks Disney Plus, all that stuff is there.
Yeah,
and the way they organize it, you could in fact follow through and do your research.
Order.
Yeah, absolutely. So
it's what we're doing now,
right?
Yeah, it's what we're doing now. And I will say, for someone who only caught part of an episode here or there of the series, I'm glad that the rest of my family is like, oh, we want to watch this, because I was like, I've wanted to, but it's been like kind of back burner shit. Like, so now it's forefront. Like, okay, everyone wants to watch it, so I get to catch up. And there's a really good reason why it's held in such high regard, because the shit is really well made.
Okay,
you got to watch it. It's okay.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So Mando has his childhood flashback completed during this scene also, finally. So we get to see what happened. There was a bunch of speculation about...
Yeah, it was a really long flashback, too.
Yeah, about Jedi rescuing him and all this other shit. I think having Mandalorians rescue him... Yeah, people on social media had so many theories about...
there were theories about Jedi rescue.
Well, because of Ezra Bridger and Ahsoka Tano and in the Clone Wars series, and maybe they'll show up and be the one that rescue him, and they hand him over to the Mandalorians.
Well, see, I kind of figured that it was the Mandalorians that rescued him just from...
Well, to me, it was almost obvious. Like, when I said this when I wrote the article,
he keeps talking about he's a foundling, and he keeps giving back to the foundlings. So, of course, it meant a lot to him to be rescued by the Mandalorians. So he keeps giving back to the other foundlings that are younger than him. So
yeah, exactly. It made perfect sense to me. I was like, no surprise here. But some people are surprised, I guess. Yeah, but there's more to it than that. And Ray, this is where we get into another animated series throwback. He is rescued by a particular faction of Mandalorians, and they have the symbol on their arm, which is how we know that they're the Death Watch. So, how do I do this really quickly? So there was a period in Mandalore's time during the Clone Wars. The Mandalorians didn't want to be involved. They didn't want to pick a side.
Right.
And it ended up with this leader called Satine. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, Duchess Satine, who was in charge of it, and she wanted the Mandalorians to be pacifists, basically. And all the warriors were basically exiled, for lack of a better term. Sorry, I'm trying to do this quick, so nobody harass me online about skipping over
They're
parts.
Coming.
But essentially, the warriors were all exiled, and they didn't like that. And there was a particular warrior from House Vizsla named Pre Vizsla who decided to start his own faction of Mandalorians, which were called the Death Watch, and they opposed the pacifist government, and they tried several times to take it over and failed. And so Pre Vizsla ended up working with Darth Maul's Shadow Collective, and together they took over Mandalore.
Okay.
The problem came when Pre Vizsla decided after he got what he wanted, fuck you, Maul.
Okay.
And so they end up in a battle, the long and short of it, and Maul kills Pre Vizsla. At this point, the Death Watch splinters, and there's a group that's loyal to Darth Maul, and there's a second group which is led by Duchess Satine's sister, Bo-Katan, who is the Mandalorian Resistance. So the Death Watch splits up, and there's two separate groups, and the Mandalorian Resistance ends up, I guess, winning in the end, to put it quickly.
It's funny because I'm watching you try to explain it without giving away the big reveal at the end.
Yeah, I know. I'm really trying hard. Yeah. So anyway, that's where you end up. So the question is, which part of the Death Watch is this? Because we don't know the exact timeline. We don't know if that's pre-Vizsla's Death Watch. Right. We don't know if this is after Maul is dead. We have no idea.
Someone in the Death Watch picked this kid up.
Somebody in the Death Watch picked this up, and they're sure going to reveal that either in Season 2 of The Mandalorian, or they may put hints of it in Season 7 of The Clone Wars at some point. Maybe.
Oh, I bet you see Mando in Season 7.
I don't know if you'll see Mando.
You're going to start to see interaction.
So the thing is, they never told us what planet Mando was on. Despite all the flashback completing, we have no idea. They said his names were in the registers of Mandalore, so was he on Mandalore and the Mandalorians saved him from the Separatist droids? Or was he on another planet and they brought him to Mandalore?
They got there pretty quick, so maybe who the hell knows?
I'm going with the Mandalore thing. I really no, because
somehow he got to Mandalore for whatever reason.
Right.
And then they saved his ass.
They may at least partially tell the story. If we see the Death Watch fighting Separatist battle droids in Season 7 of the Clone Wars, that's coming. Its releases in February, I think, of 2020. Then we'll know that's where they're going. But I'm sure they're going to do something like that to give an idea. In any case, that's enough on that. And I didn't spoil the main part of it, so
good.
We'll get back to that.
No, we'll do that in a minute.
So we cut back to IG-11. He's storming the town. He's wrecking everything. He has the Yodelorian on his chest,
which was so amazing.
Yeah,
it was so satisfying after seeing him briefly in Episode 1 do it.
Right.
To see him again.
Well, and that was a point I wanted to bring up before. I might have done it the last time we recorded together, but as a kid, seeing Empire and seeing IG sitting up there, IG-88 sitting up on top of that, and you never see him move. And back then you're curious, how would that thing move?
Yeah,
because it looks so flimsy and so this and so that, and to see it now and the way it can spin around 360 degrees and stare at you and move its arms any direction it really wants to,
and like an instant too.
Yeah, just like.
Multiple servos working in unison.
Right, and it's just amazing that this thing is probably the biggest badass droid ever built. Series of droid ever built. Other than the one that we're going to talk about later, which is more badass than IG-11, I think. So,
and now he's a nurse. Good.
Yeah. Yes. No, he's a nurse.
So he makes his way through and he gets to the courtyard outside the cantina. He lets the speeder go at that point. It blows up and kills several stormtroopers. That's where Mando and Greef decide, fuck it, we're going to go out there and start fighting too. They shoot a couple guys, kick some on the ground, I don't know. But Mando eventually picks up that E-Web cannon. And he picks it up. Like, it takes three stormtroopers to carry it over there. But he's just like... he's going to freaking wreck him.
You don't realize how strong he is because he doesn't show it all the time. But when he does, you realize that this guy's a badass.
But this thing has got a massive battery pack that it's attached to.
Yep.
And Gideon tries to shoot him, bounces off his shoulder, and then he realizes real quick, I'm just going to shoot the battery pack. And it blows up, and Mando is on the ground, seriously injured. They retreat back into the cantina. Cara Dune picks him up and drags him. But IG-11 and the rest of them all go in there to sort of hide out, I guess. The plan, I think, at that point was for them to retreat through the sewer, and they thought IG-11 could cut the sewer.
Because they'd already tried to break through it.
Yeah, but they thought IG could, maybe.
Yeah.
So Gideon tells them, go get Incinerator Trooper, burn him out. So we've seen Incinerator Troopers or Flame Troopers a few times.
Yeah.
But never like this one. This one is like really cool looking. With
He's got a whole paint job and shit. Yeah.
He may have shown up in something else before that. I forget, like a video game. He's probably in Battlefront or something.
Sure, I never saw
I didn't even think about that when I was looking at it. Yeah, he might be in that. But So he goes in there to flame the place, and Yodalorian again, back with that force
stands up,
power.
does his little eyes shut thing, and
Yep. And he can apparently stop fire in its tracks, which
and
makes
repel it
perfect
in the
sense. And
opposite
then
direction.
repel it back, and the guy blows up. So that's that. And they get IG-11 to cut open the grate. But then when Mando and Kara take the Yodalorian down, they tell IG-11 to stay behind to bring Mando with them, right?
yeah.
And so this is the point
Mando
where
tells him, "You got to go.
That's
I'm not
right.
going to make
He's-
it."
Yeah.
He's been arguing the
really
whole time.
fucked up.
Yeah.
He's bleeding from the back of his head. He's fucked up.
So IG-11 stays to help him out. To help him back was the plan, I guess. But then we get the face reveal moment.
Yeah, which I knew was coming at some point in this season.
Yeah.
You got to at least see this guy's face. They did it really well because he said, "No, you can't," because IG-11 says,
Yeah.
"I have to take your helmet off to fix you," and he's like, "Do it, and I'll destroy you," And he says, "No living creatures ever see my face," and IG-11 says, "Well, I'm not alive,"
Right.
and it was like. It was cool. Like it hit me better than I thought it was going to.
Because it's a twofold thing.
Because I saw it coming.
He has that distrust of droids
He hates
that all of
droids.
a sudden
Yes.
gets melted away, and
Yeah.
the fact that the reveal doesn't mean anything because he's not alive.
Well, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a twofold deal.
Yeah.
I
and
really
I,
like
and
that.
I kind of saw it coming right up to that point.
Right.
And even still, it kind of got me like, all right, that was cool. They
Yeah.
did a really good job with the scene.
Absolutely.
So he heals him with a box of spray.
Yep. Which is another callback to some old
Everything.
stuff.
The
Yeah.
box attack that Luke's in
Yeah.
after the Wampa attack.
Yeah.
It's-
Yep.
yeah. And
But
it's
this
been in a
stuff
lot
is
of the-
apparently super magical. Though,
Yeah,
at
it's
this
been
point.
in a lot of
'Cause
the
we've
books
seen
and
it
shit,
heal
too.
flesh and muscles. Okay, fine. Men broken
Yeah.
bones. Now it heals concussions. Like your brain is damaged, and
Slowly,
I'm just going to
slowly.
spray it on the
It is
outside.
slowly, yeah.
Where the hell
It's
is
gotta
this
work.
stuff?
Right?
Man, we need it.
Yeah, the NFL would be great. But it does take a little time. I guess it's got to get into the blood
Yeah.
or whatever, because he says it's gonna, it takes a minute, whatever. And they even show him walking him out, and he's kind of still staggering. It takes a little bit
Right.
before he's finally like, okay, I can walk.
I'm not taking issue with it. I just think they need to keep it as a rarity in the Star Wars universe. So it's something that you don't see very often. It doesn't get used very much because
Right.
otherwise every character that's near death is just going to get back to sprayed from now on,
Right.
and they're gonna make it 15 minutes of waiting to see if it happens while they die, and then it's going to be like,
Yeah,
good to go.
yeah.
I really don't want them to do that. They got to keep it rare, but I'll accept it. I'll accept it here. It's okay. So anyway, they get off into the sewers after Mando gets his concussion healed, find their way to the covert, which there was something that bothered me a little bit here. Mando has been on this planet for presumably years
Right.
in this covert, and he doesn't know his way around the underground tunnels
That bothered me
at
too.
all.
He was lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he finds his way there. After a few minutes when the back display kicks in, and he's like, "Oh, I'm good. I can stand now. Let me look for footprints." Like, you didn't need to do that. Couldn't you have just had him guide them and say, "This is the way. Go left. Go right. Whatever."
Yeah, you could have said
It was unnecessary.
The concussion was fucking with him a little bit. And, okay, I can think clearly. I don't know.
Strange.
Yeah, I get it.
So when they get back to right outside the covert, there is a pile of armor pieces and helmets. And
Yeah.
Mando has like a "oh fuck me" moment, not only because of what's going on, because he knows that it's his fault
Right.
that the covert's location was revealed in the first place. And he said that to Paz Vizsla when you're outside the thing, like, you guys are gonna have to relocate the covert, or we're all fucked. And
Right.
yeah, that's the way. But I don't think they had enough. They obviously didn't have enough time to actually do that.
Right.
And so there's definitely not enough pieces in that pile to beat all the Mandalorians that attacked in Episode 3.
No, but also what I initially thought was that was something that Moff Gideon left for him to find after he killed.
Yeah,
a
it's
whole bunch
interesting
of them.
that it's in a pile with no body parts.
Yeah, I thought it was like that was a signal or a sign that he left. Like, yeah, fuck you, I got you guys too.
He was a
But
calling
it
card.
wasn't
Yeah.
quite that guy.
And so I have to ask another question here, and that the armorer is the only one left, and she is where the fuck was she in all the fighting? Surely she didn't just let them all get annihilated and their armor piled up outside the covert.
Well, the thing is, they didn't though, because if you remember, she says a lot of them left. We had to expose ourselves. Yeah. And I'm hoping that some of them made it to other systems. Well, she says that in there.
Notably, I looked for it several times, and freeze frame on that pilot, I did not see Paz Vizslá's helmet because he has that weird, thick antenna thing on it. I didn't see it anywhere in that pilot.
Yeah,
of course,
so
it's a
he'll
pilot.
Show up later. Yeah,
but I think he's coming back.
Yeah, he'll come back. I'm sure there's going to be a handful of them that come back.
Probably.
But yeah, like she specifically says though, we had to expose ourselves, and I'm hoping they made it to others.
Yeah, she does.
So she doesn't know where everybody went.
She says
so maybe there wasn't as big a battle as we thought.
Yeah, they just get killed one by one, and then the stuff got piled up.
Yeah, this is the all right. Look, the only way we're going to get out of here is if we leave our ship behind and kind of. So maybe the Mandalorians are going to take a turn where their faces are exposed, but they're still some type of mercenary, or I don't know.
I guess we'll see. So they go into the armorer's forge area, and they start talking about the Mandalorian and what he's done or whatever, and she tells Mando that she remembers this from songs or whatever, right? And she talks about Mandalore the Great fighting space sorcerers or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And so this has been covered
She mentions Jedi.
Well, she does. Yeah. But
Jedi,
so this has only been covered a little bit in the Clone Wars. There's a whole bunch of shit on it in Legends and comics mostly about what happened. But in Clone Wars, they've only sort of like mentioned the events without explaining what happened. So it's kind of like if you acknowledge the event in canon, then did everything that happened in Legends go with that, or is it just the event and nothing else? But anyway, what she's making reference to is the Mandalorian Jedi War, which was actually a series of conflicts that happened starting like 4,000 years before the current timeline.
Right.
And so the Mandalorians and the Jedis fought. The Mandalorians didn't understand the Jedi. They didn't like them. They didn't want anything to do with the Republic. They wanted to stay as warrior fighters. And, you know, the Jedi were trying to come in there and be like, no, you guys can be peaceful. Everything's cool. It's a lovely, lovely Republic. You know, and they ended up in a battle, well, actually several battles over it that went on for a long time. And ultimately the Mandalorians lost that battle. But what the Jedi had to do to win was at a huge cost, and they destroyed most of Mandalore. And all that was left by the end of it was like these dome cities. You know, the place was basically a desert. Everything had been annihilated. That's not how it started, but that's how it was after the end of multiple years of decades of war, maybe more than decades. But so the place was wrecked. So in the Clone Wars series, but also the Clone Wars time frame, there are some Mandalorians like Pre Vizsla that hold a grudge against the Jedi for what they had done thousands of years prior. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's not clear which thing she's referring to. I mean, she says Mandalore the Great, so that's probably the old ancient stuff. But you would think if those kind of tales got passed down to her, then wouldn't the stuff that happened, 50 years ago been passed down to her too? Yeah. Why does she not know anything about Jedi other than calling them sorcerers? Like, she's never seen one or never had any interaction. She doesn't know about everything that went down on Mandalore during Clone Wars.
For everything that's been going on here too, there's a lot of that where the Jedi are just like lore, they're legends.
Well, that's true.
So
that's
could just be like it's a big galaxy.
Well, that's what I'm. Here's my thought process on it. Here you have this faction that probably had nothing to do with any of it. And I think that's what I like the most about this show, is it literally has nothing to do with everything else that we know. It gives you subtle hints to things, but doesn't come out flat out. And that episode was the first time they used the word Jedi.
Yeah.
And that, to me, signifies that these people know very little or close to nothing about anything like the Skywalker saga or anything else.
Yeah, no, you're probably right.
I think that that's really what it comes down to. And I think that's the appeal of it, is the fact that it's diverted so far away from everything else that we know, and that's why it's so popular.
Yeah, we've had this discussion on not Mandalorian reviews, but just in general Star Wars stuff. Like, it would be nice if they made some whatever new trilogies they come up with or what have you.
Right.
If those were based on, say, the Old Republic or something that,
Yes.
maybe you've got some book reference, but has nothing to do with the Skywalker saga. It's completely different characters. And it can still tie into future events or even past events, I guess, if you're going to do something in the future, in an indirect sort of way without bringing in the characters from those things and making them like a montage or a centerpiece on your show. Right.
Right.
So The Mandalorian's done really well with that, with having all these callbacks and Easter eggs, but they don't affect the storyline. Right. Really. They don't impact.
I think you're right on the money with that, and I think it's because it's their life. This is what they're living. Yeah. These things are real to them. Now we're taking it as reference to everything else, but honestly, it's more than that. It's very meta in the fact that this is the way they live. And again, being so far away from everything else, these are planets that we haven't really heard of before, as far as I know.
Yeah, well, yeah, all but one of them actually is new.
And that I think is why it diverges from everything else, and it's just its own singular thing. And I love the fact that the word "the Force" has not been mentioned once, not one time in this entire thing. You know that he's got that power, but it's everybody's scratching their head. It's like they discovered fire all of a sudden. Like when he says, "Do your magic wavy hands."
Yeah, exactly.
He just waves high. Yes, sir. But that's what I've really loved about this show is it literally has nothing to do with anything else, and there are references to other storylines, but nothing concrete. And that's why I think that this particular Mandalorian doesn't know anything about that stuff other than in story and rumor, because she wasn't a part of it. She was her own faction.
That's fair. And to draw back to what John was saying earlier, there's probably upwards of 300 million inhabited systems.
Yeah, it's a big fucking galaxy.
It's probably 3 million, not 300 million.
Okay,
but in any case,
take our own planet into consideration.
Yeah.
How many people just in this country think they know how shit goes in other countries?
Yeah, exactly.
And those of us who have been to other countries are going to be like, "Ooh, really?"
And if you
have no idea,
if you were to do some backwards math on the Order 66 and how many Jedi died and how many were, you could surmise that probably at the peak there might have been 10,000 Jedi.
Yeah.
In a galaxy with quintillions, septillions of people, I don't even know. Spread across many light years. Lots.
Lots of people.
I can't go past dodeca, so it's got to be smaller than that.
Where were we at?
We were talking. We were still on the sorcerers and her not knowing about the Jedi, and I was just drawing it out.
You drew that out while I peed. Nice.
And we did well with it.
Last episode, Paul tried to cover, saying, "Well, while you were getting a drink," I'm like, "I was peeing." Okay. At this point in this podcast, after a year, you guys know when someone's gone peeing. Okay.
So they have a discussion about the foundling status of the Mandalorian and him having to basically be responsible for it now. You're as its father, I think is what she says.
Yes.
And then he says to her, "You expect me to train this thing?" But she's very quick to say no. Too weak, he would die. You're
not to train him as a Mandalorian.
Yeah, you have to do the other part of this, which is return him to his people. And so the big debate here is, does he have to go find, not for me, by the way, I'm just saying social media stuff, and the big debate is, does he have to go find Yoda's kind and Yoda's planet and they're going to reveal all that? Or does he just have to go find some remnant Jedi and turn the kid over there? And
now, considering the timeline, okay, I'm up in the air on either one. It could be either one. He can go either way with this as far as season 2, 3, blah, 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 whatever. But it still kind of calls back to what I said a few episodes ago when I was like, you're going to see a de-aged Luke Skywalker at some point. I thought you were going to see it in this season, but I admit it would be a lot to cram in, so I'm glad they didn't do it. Hindsight. But I wouldn't be surprised at some point if you see a de-aged Mark Hamill in this.
Yeah. I see. That's the gripe I have. Is I'm really loving this non-Skywalker anything,
Yeah, but he's okay.
canon enough,
Still,
but not into that.
and I would agree with that. However, this is probably the most powerful being we've seen in quite a while. Okay,
Yeah.
at this age anyway, and you're 5 years currently, almost 6 now with some of the time jumps you've had here, between 5 and 6 years post Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Who's the first person he's probably going to hear tale of reforming an academy?
Right.
It's got to be Luke.
So I have a different take on this.
Okay.
And this is back to the animated series because there are 2 Jedi.
I love when we fight. We can figure out who's. I'm usually wrong anyway, so it doesn't matter.
There are 2 Jedi that had direct interaction with the Mandalorians, and that's Ahsoka Tano and Ezra Bridger. And
I would love Ahsoka. Okay. Yes.
so if he were to go find somebody within the Mandalorian, maybe he finds a couple of the Mandalorian that still survive from his thing, and they're like, well, we've heard rumor of these Jedi. You know, that could be a way to get back to it. And then when he turns the Yodalorian over, I'm not saying this is happening, I'm just, when he turns the Yodalorian over, they can easily make reference to the new Jedi Academy without Luke being there.
True.
Or being involved.
Should we hold all this until after we get done with the episode? I just thought of that.
As
I derailed us, I realized it.
All right, fair enough. So basically, he has to take the child back to the sorcerers. I think is where we're headed, not to the Yoda world.
Right.
I do not personally think
you need to take him back.
George Lucas made it very clear that he didn't want Yoda's species, planet, origin revealed at all ever. It was supposed to stay a mystery. Favreau has been so. I wonder
if that is actually in the contract with Disney.
I don't know.
Not.
I don't know. But this series has been such a dedication to George Lucas that it's hard to imagine that Favreau would betray that. You know, oh, there's this one thing we don't want you to do. It's this, and that they would betray that in the first season they make. I doubt it.
Not in the first season, no.
So,
2,
or
3
the second,
seasons in.
or the second. I don't even know. I just think they're going to go find Jedi. They're not going to find the Yoda species.
Let's wrap up the episode and then let's speculate.
All right. So
someone's got to keep this train on
this train is
the
way
one
off track.
rail.
So
one rail.
Might be
the armorer decides at one point. She says this line to him that almost had a tear out of me. She said, "You've earned your signet. You're a clan of 2," and she gives him the mud horn. Thing. I was like, all right, fine, because he turned that signet down before because the Yodalorian helped him defeat the.
But
then he said it was an enemy, but now she's like,
no, you're his father. You are a clan of 2.
Your father, child.
So
now.
it makes them a family.
And then before he rolls, she has to give him the final present of the jetpack, which is something he's wanted since episode 3, at least. Right. When he mentioned, I got to get me one of those, but we knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, which for a second, and I kind of dismissed it in my own mind, but for a second I laughed because, like, you know, in episode 3 he's like, got to get me one of those. But in the flashback in this episode, you clearly see all of them flying around with him, whatever. So to me, it was like that one line in that other episode was kind of like he was shocked that they had him, but then I was like, you know, I'm okay with it. But I'm just kind of like, just not lazy writing, but kind of a little bit of a hiccup in the writing where at one point he saw them flying around and was like, I gotta get me one of those. But you knew they were there. You know? But then when she said, you've earned it, I was like, oh, all right.
It's a rite of passage.
Yeah.
I feel like he's been working his way up, and every time he goes for a new piece of armor or whatever in the show, she's like, you know, that would be fitting of a station of your
ass kicked.
Well, yeah. She always says, though, like, that would be fitting of a person of your station or a person of your position. It's like, yeah, okay, you've earned this, but that means you haven't earned these other things.
Right, yeah, and yes, so I'm just saying, just the way they wrote the first one, it kind of like, it threw me like it was just a piece of equipment. But when she explained, it won't listen to you.
Yeah, that was actually an odd line that I don't understand.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't get it.
I think their armor is something that is almost, I don't say living or sentient, but it's something that
It's like a
connects
Venom
with all
symbiotic kind of
right.
thing.
It's
That would be
everything.
cool. If you learn that later, holy shit, that opens up
Only
Well,
in,
and I
only in
think
a
that's
computer-controlled
a whole
sense,
new
maybe.
world.
And it does
Right.
definitely have electronics
Yes,
in
it
it, as we
does.
saw in the Mudhorn scene.
But and one thing we didn't mention is the signet itself is made out of a chest plate from one of the Fallen.
yeah,
Which I thought was really cool. That
Yeah.
she picks that plate up, she throws it into the fire, and then as she's talking, all of a sudden she's got the
This is one of
signet
your
out.
fallen brethren, and
Yeah.
I'm going to make your signet out of that. Yeah,
Right.
That was
I
cool.
really dug that.
I wouldn't mind if they somehow melded with the Force and all this other shit. Somehow melded the computer side of the armor with something sentient.
Well, and maybe it
Almost
is.
a droidish thing. All right, think
Like-
think Warlock in X-Men.
Right.
Something like that.
Right.
If it was something like that where it can kind of think for
Well,
itself a little bit.
and very well it could be.
'Cause if it's
we
not gonna
really
listen
don't
to
know
them-
much about this group at
Yeah.
all, and we're starting to learn. In fact, this episode in particular, we learn a lot more about them, and they're almost like a religion, like the Jedi. And
Yeah.
this could be their
Well, then they
version of the
specifically
Force.
say
This armor could be their Force,
Yeah.
and that's where the
And that's
whole.
because I'm like, I know it's never going to happen that way, but
Right,
for it to
right.
be somewhat sentient, because she
Right.
says it won't listen to you, which is a really weird line.
Right.
So unless your armor is sentient, why would it not listen to you? So unless it can think for itself, which would be cool, because
Right.
it would also explain where, when he shoots off the
flame-
Phoenix,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Why it attacks at random or whatever, but it kind of hits its target. It would explain a lot.
Yeah.
So I mean, hopefully they'll get to that.
Is it
Right.
all whistling birds.
I don't. Yeah. Thank you. The Whistling Birds, Phoenixes, whatever. I was X-Men.
Phoenix was what she called the jetpack thing, where she said she had
Yeah.
been trained in the way of the
Phoenix.
The
Yeah,
Phoenix,
yeah.
yeah.
See, so I'm all X-Men. Mandalorian shows up and you just hear doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
So
Forget Rocky. Next season is gonna be nothing but X-Men '93.
Oh god.
So off they go. The armorer tells them there's a secret way out. If they go deeper, they can get to this underground river, or lava river, and
It's
get,
a lava
get out
river.
that way. Yeah.
Which is interesting.
It is, and it's going. I want to point this out that they went downhill to get to the lava river, but then it's flowing downhill, and they get outside.
Which means it must have been in some sort of giant mountain.
Right? That's the only way to
Giant
explain
mountain.
that. But they couldn't have been because they were in the covert, which we know is right off the main bazaar. In the thing, 'cause
So
it's
somewhere
walked
way over
into it on
here,
top.
it's
Yeah.
deeper.
They're tunnels. They go everywhere. They're tunnels.
Yeah, I'll accept
Like
it. I
Disney.
just
That's
thought
right.
it was
The
funny.
Disney
Like
tunnel.
the tunnels.
We're getting deeper and deeper and deeper to go outside.
That's right.
That
is Magic
You
Kingdom.
you know what? You've never driven across the Chesapeake Bay Bridge tunnel?
No, I haven't.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
Scary.
never mind. Yeah, where
Uh,
you're above ground,
then you
below
go down.
ground, below
Yeah.
river, above, below, 3 or 4 times. Yeah, never mind.
So they get to a barge.
Makes perfect sense now,
Yeah,
don't it?
don't.
There is an R2 droid in there, or it looks like an R2 droid.
Oh, that shit was funny.
Right, and then they push the barge off, and the broken, it fires up, and the lava caked on it like breaks
Yeah,
away.
breaks
or whatever.
off, and then all
And
of a
then
sudden,
he's
it
got like a
fucking stands
whole,
up.
Yeah, he's got like a whole armature. Like he's got arms and legs, and I'm calling him R2 Bro from now on. That's it. I like it.
and
bro.
if Disney's listening to this podcast, and we know they are, please bring him to Galaxy's Edge immediately.
R2 bro.
Bring him to Galaxy's Edge and make him walk around, because that was probably the most badass Star Wars thing I've ever seen.
It looked really
Walk
good.
around.
I
He
really
should be
liked that.
standing on the back of the fucking the shuttle that brings you around.
I'm telling you, that was
He
shocking.
was cool.
That was just amazing. All of a sudden, he broke out, and then he didn't stand up right away.
Yeah.
It was just all of a sudden, up he went, and he was over 6 foot tall. And I'm like, holy shit!
Yeah,
It
He
was
was
like
cool.
if you took 3PO and R2 and put them together, and that's what you got.
it was. No, he was more like the torture droid in Jabba.
Yes.
He was like that.
Yeah, like they had
and
put
they
parts
slammed
together.
R2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely something that somebody just kind of collaborated together.
That is, but see, that's the uniqueness of this universe is they just take parts and make things, and
Yeah.
To me, that's the awesome part of it. So yeah,
Well, yeah, and that's what I put on the spoiler article for this too. This felt like a real nod to Lucas, where you've taken because he wanted the world to be like hodgepodge technology where things and bits and pieces are just put together and everything feels sort of old and reused. And that's exactly what they did with this little droid. It was like somebody took an R2 unit, busted the legs off, or the normal, tanky wheelie legs, whatever they call them, and then they stuck some real legs on there because they wanted him to be able to. He's an astromech droid, for Christ's sake, and he drives a boat like like he's in.
So this show's hit that in spades, though. Everything is so old and worn. And
what's the guy? What's the ferry? Charon, the ferry.
Oh
guy from, Greek mythology.
Charon.
Yeah,
something like that.
That's what he looked like, a droid version of that.
Yeah.
Maybe
he should have had a
don't pay the ferryman.
Yeah, he's got to pay the ferryman. Well, so and staying on that note, that's exactly what's going to happen in a minute, right? So there is a whole platoon of troopers sitting outside the tunnel exit, which Mando can see with his visor. Yeah. And then IG-11 makes the decision that he's going to take them out, and there's no other way to do it.
And it's another callback to I need to self-destruct, and you can't self-destruct.
Yes. And just before they got in the boat, he said, "Watch out, this is lava, it's hot."
Which is funny. As he walks in. There's also a callback to, what the hell did he... He said, your central processing unit is damaged. Yeah. He's like, "You mean my brain?" He's like, "It was a joke. It was supposed to make you feel better." Which made me laugh. I was like, okay, it was funny. So there's little jokes here and there from the IG-11 droid that you're like, wow, this is kind of good. This is good writing. But yeah, so he says, well, I need to self-destruct, and we go back to Mando telling him, you're not going to self-destruct. But the argument is different this time. Yeah. Before, it was like, you're not going to fucking blow up and kill me with you. Now it's, no, you can't. I need you.
You're part of this team.
Yeah, so now he's accepted the fact that not only is he this baby's father, he's got a family now. He's got this group that he's going to keep together. And this droid that he's hated all droids up until this point, you saved me, you went out of your way to help me. I have a bond with you, and I can't let you go now.
Yeah.
And it was a good, while maybe a little forced for time.
Yeah.
It could have been, like, if it had been, like, a little bit later on or maybe the next season, it would have made more sense. But forced for time, but it made sense in the whole thing. Okay, you saved my life. I owe you. That kind of thing. And so the you can't self-destruct was a plea.
Right.
And IG-11 calls him out on it. Yeah. And that part was cool, where he's like...
You don't have to be sad, I was never alive. You don't have to be sad.
I was never alive. And he's like, I'm not sad. He's like...
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are. He's like, yeah, he calls him out. Yes, you are. I'm programmed to understand
I'm a
voices.
nursemaid.
I'm a nursemaid. I know.
Yep.
So, again, I said at the beginning of the show, the title might have double meaning here. I think redemption is part of what happens here, but it's not redemption for IG-11, actually. So IG-11 goes out, blows himself up, essentially takes out the trooper.
Could be for all of them.
And he puts himself in the lava, walking through the lava.
Yes. But so IG-11...
Which shows you just how tough what he's made out of is.
I'm telling you, there's a badass droids, man. Yeah.
So IG-11 himself needed no redemption, really. I mean, worst case, you could fault him because he was going to shoot the Mandalorian, but he never actually got to fulfill it, and Mando blew a hole in his head. And from that point on, he worked on a farm, right? So he doesn't really have anything to redeem himself for, but the act that he went through is sort of part two of what happened inside the cantina when he heals Mando, and Mando thinks he's going to kill him, and he's like, no, I'm going to heal you, whatever. So this sort of redeemed all droids, I think, in the eyes of Mando, right? Yeah. Now, the droids that killed his family and basically ruined his whole life to begin with, he could sort of look back and say, okay, they were just programmed to do that, which is what Quill tried to tell him, 2 episodes ago, I guess. Like, they're just programmed to do what they're programmed to do. They're not thinking about it, they're not, there's no conscious thought anyway. So anyway, so I think that was meant to be part of the redemption.
C-3PO be damned.
Not for IG-11 himself, but for all the droids, basically, to sort of redeem him in Mando's eyes.
R2 Bro He gets his head ripped off.
Oh yeah, blown off. I think I can't remember. He's very tall. I just thought
Who the fuck did that?
it was Kara.
It was Kara.
Yeah, because she wants him to stop, and he's not stopping,
yeah.
and then she actually has to reach her arm up to put the
because he's like 7
under
foot
his head.
or
He's
more.
really tall.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Wookiee status.
Yeah.
So the troopers are dead, so they're coming out of the tunnel, and they're almost home free at this point. But of course, Gideon comes in with his fucking modified TIE fighter, and I don't know how the hell he knew where they were coming out, but he knows. I guess because the trooper, maybe because the whole platoon died.
The
right
platoon
there.
there's
knows
also-
they're there. Come on, they are talking.
There's something with Gideon that I think will
We'll get to that.
show.
later.
Yeah,
All
show
right,
itself. So
all right,
that
we'll
I
get
think
to
has
that in a
something
second.
too. Yeah.
So
yeah.
luckily, Mando has that jetpack. He's going to put it on. Apparently, it listens to him just fine. And he goes
Well, not
after
really.
it. Well,
Because he kind of like when he started putting it on, the first thing I kind of giggled to myself, and nobody in the room got it. But I said, "This son of a bitch is about the greatest American hero." This shit, like we kind of like flies.
Oh
together.
yeah, absolutely.
For those of you listening, Greatest American Hero was a show we watched way back when the guy found
1981, March of 1981.
alien suit that he really didn't know how to control,
and he lost the instruction manual.
Yep. Yeah. So there you go.
Have every episode.
Of course you do. God damn it. I love to see how many different geek levels deep we can go on this show. Go ahead.
so he gets a hold
Pretty
of the,
fucking deep.
He gets a hold of the
deep.
tie though, and eventually gets 2 explosives out
Yeah,
on
he
it.
flies up there, grapples it, lands on it, and after a struggle, gets a couple of explosives on there, and it blows up.
Boom.
Also, can we point out how the frickin' thing landed?
Yeah.
And how it folded its wings up and landed on the ground. I mean, that's
cool.
shit we've never seen before.
Yeah,
And it's
so there's an interesting story behind that because the concept was actually developed for The Force Awakens. The folding wing ties, and they never actually used it.
Okay,
So
all right.
Favreau went, what's that?
Really?
Yeah, really, yeah. Yeah, the folding wing ties.
Sorry, I mean to fuck you up with my really. I was actually astonished by that. So.
Yeah. So
I didn't know that.
I forget the designer's name, but one of their graphic designers drew out the TIE fighters with the folding wings. They never ended up using it in The Force Awakens, so Favreau borrowed it for this show, and so we have this. And again, this just goes back to if Gideon's part of the ISB and he might have had these advanced weapons research divisions and things. It makes perfect sense for him to have,
grab all that shit.
some weird technology or whatever, some modified equipment. So
I'm shocked he didn't have a goddamn Death Star cannon on the bottom of that TIE.
Well, and this is during Project Cinder, where everything is being destroyed. So this guy probably is just scraping up anything he can get his hands on.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, he's to be fair, he's out in the Outer Rim too.
Yeah.
So he's not in the core worlds. He's not anywhere near where the New Republic is established.
Right.
He probably has time to recover things without other people get their hands on them.
Right.
Which is the perfect reason for him and a whole remnant of stormtroopers and whatever to be out in the Outer Rim. Because if you're on the inner worlds, you're in the core, you're going to be found. You're going to be
well, and then in a lot of the older Legends shit, in the Outer Rim is where you wound up getting these remnants of the Empire that would attack Luke and Leia and Han, whatever, and they would have these random weapons they hadn't seen before. Because they were developing them out there.
It was also the only real place where, in the original trilogy, neither the Republic or the Empire had any good control of anything. Like, Hutt space was a huge chunk of the Outer Rim where they couldn't do shit.
Yeah.
It was Hutt's way or the highway. So, it all makes good sense.
My band's name in college.
So, anyway, he sends Gideon's TIE fighter crashing to the ground, and I'm just going to cry one more time on this, but every time a TIE fighter hits anything, it explodes in this huge ball of fire, except today. Except this episode.
Yeah.
And Force Awakens.
Sorry. Yeah. It's like, okay, fine. You need it for the plot, I guess, but jeez.
Well,
could you have done it some other way? Like, maybe it was low on the ground when he chopped the wing off.
It just happened. New Hope.
Yeah, New Hope does that.
Vader's
at least he's in space. He doesn't crash onto a planet.
Yeah, but it could have exploded like everything else.
Okay, well, with all the other mods that Gideon did to this thing, it had reinforced shields or some shit.
All right, fine.
I'm helping the fucking guy out. Not that he really needs much help because I'm all in.
He is. Yeah, there's something about him.
So,
and it's coming.
All is well in the world at this point. They think Gideon's dead. Mando's off to find the sorcerers with the child. The Jedi, I mean.
Buries Quill.
He buries Quill, that's right. Karga, he's got his town back, he's got his guild back, and he asks Kara to stay on as his enforcer. And she's
tells Mando
maybe I'll hang around.
Yeah. He tells Mando, stay, all will be forgiven.
Yep.
You'll be the best one here. And Mando's like,
Mando's got shit to do. I got something to do.
For this kid. I got
it's part of the creed, man. I got to do it.
Gotta go.
It is the way.
Yep. And so
Bye,
then
Felicia.
we get a cut to the final scene of the episode, which is Gideon's crashed TIE fighter. Jawas are in there.
They do that nice little
with it. Yep.
zoom in, and then you see the Jawas fucking with it.
And then
you see something cut through.
Yeah, exactly. You see something cut through. Lo and behold, he's alive, and he walks out with what I am 99% certain is the Darksaber.
The minute he cut through the hull of this thing, I was like, that looks like a fucking Darksaber. And he kept going around. And this is when we're going to get into the rest of our episode. But, yeah, he stands up on the top of this thing, looking off into the distance like, okay, he's got a mission. And he's got this Darksaber in his hand. And then it cuts.
Yep.
Right?
All right. So before we trail off, for anybody's benefit that doesn't watch Clone Wars and Rebels, the Darksaber was a special sort of lightsaber, I guess we'll say.
Yeah.
Which was
looks like a katana.
Yeah, it does look like a katana, but it lights up like a saber. But I mean, it has essential.
It's black.
It was built by the very first Mandalorian to ever be inducted into the Jedi ranks, which was Tari Vizsla, I think.
Yep.
And so that weapon, after Tari Vizsla died, it was held in the Jedi Temple. House Vizsla went back and stole it, and then they passed it down from generation to generation to every leader
of the Mandalorians. Yes.
Until Pre Vizsla got it. And what we talked about earlier was Maul killed Pre Vizsla. When Maul killed Pre Vizsla, he took that Darksaber as his own weapon, and he stopped using his lightsaber. And so eventually, Maul goes back to his own original weapon, but he also dies at the hands of Obi-Wan again. For a second time.
Again.
So when he dies the second time, the Darksaber, he doesn't have it with him at that point, and the Darksaber is apparently on Dathomir with the Night Sisters. So fast forward to Rebels, and Sabine Wren, from the Mandalorian from the Rebels, goes back to Dathomir, retrieves the Darksaber. She trains with it, learns how to use it, but ultimately she passes it on to Bo-Katan, who leads the Mandalorians at the end of the Clone Wars.
And that's that's all you know.
And that's where it ends, as far as we know. So there's a big gap there, a big gap, where we don't know what happened, but somehow Gideon got this thing. Now, they tell us, of course, in an earlier part of this, we already talked about, that he was an ISB officer and he was involved in the Siege of Mandalore. So it's possible this is just spoils of war, and they killed the Mandalorians, and he was the lead officer, and he's like, F you, I'm taking this thing.
Yep.
Okay, but there's other problems with that, and we've talked about this in various contexts before, but no one uses a saber in this world unless they're trained to use it, except Finn. Except Finn.
Right.
But even he is supposedly Force sensitive. I guess, can I say that? Spoiler? Sorry?
Yeah,
even he might be Force sensitive.
Force Awakens, you thought maybe he might be, so we'll see.
So there's a question there of whether maybe Gideon has something going on. Has he
dark
got some Force sensitivity? Has he got some? Is that explain why he wants the Yodalorian so bad?
Be a touch to your nod to Darth Vader too.
That's what I'm thinking. I thought that the minute I saw him and saw that outfit, he did not look like a Grand Moff at all. He looked like a Darth.
Yeah, a Sith.
He looked like a Sith Lord, and I'm like, he's going to be Force sensitive. He's going to be dark side all the way, just from the way he looked and the way he handled himself. Yeah. There's just something about that guy. So,
knowing the actor and what I've seen him in before, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, he's a badass.
Give him way more. I knew the minute the TIE Fighter went down, I'm like, yeah, he's alive. The fact that they showed it with the Darksaber fucked me up, and I was like, oh, this got deep. It's going to be a lot of fun. So just the fact that they tied now what I firmly believe to be a Sith.
Right.
Now, he has very big ties to the fall of the Mandalorians. Yeah. it's going to be something big going into season 2.
And he hasn't shown his true power.
No.
I don't know if I don't know if I would say he's a Sith, but he may be Force sensitive.
I think there's more to him.
I mean the Sith are essentially dead at this point and gone.
Yeah, but
so were the Jedi, and there were a handful of them floating around.
This guy could have been trained and just held his secret.
There were never a handful of Sith floating around, though, in this time period.
Yeah, but, okay, again, go back to your Clone Wars cartoons and whatever else, where there's always, like Yoda, always 2 there are, Master and Apprentice, but then you had, like, the Apprentice had an apprentice, kind of, sort of, and they were hiding shit from their masters. So, he could be a hidden apprentice. He could have been a hidden apprentice of Darth Vader.
Right.
Because that's in one of the games.
Right.
I forget which one. But it's not too long ago it came out where there's this apprentice of Darth Vader that's going around.
Right.
And it's a huge game and everybody loved it. So, it was, one of the times when I fell out of video games because I have kids. But, yeah.
I remember
it's
those days.
that one. It's
Yeah,
that one.
yeah.
All right, so
all right.
I guess that's part of your prediction. I don't know. I could see him being Force
All right,
sensitive.
so what do we
I don't
think
he's any.
overall season 1?
Loved it. I absolutely loved it. I mean, everything about it was wonderful. Even the way that they did in the middle episodes 4, 5, 6, where they did sort of like an adventure of the week thing.
Right.
Totally good with it because that gave you some like weird suspense into leading back into the original.
Even when they turned into like 18 for a second, you're like, really? We're doing this now? Okay, let's go.
I love the way he did it. I love everything Favreau has done with putting all these Easter eggs and callbacks to Lucas influences, the Akira Kurosawa Seven Samurai episode, all the callbacks to like Man with No Name and all this Western tropes. I love all of it. All of it. I mean, it was perfect. Near perfect.
Yep. Yeah. What do you think, Ray?
I'm going to step out here on the edge of the cliff and say it's the best Star Wars anything to me since Empire, period. And it's not just the storytelling. It feels like it's from that era. Mm-hmm. You feel like it's 1980 and you're watching Empire. It doesn't take you out. Like a lot of the newer stuff, unless you follow canon and watch everything, like me outside looking in, it doesn't pull me in like the old stuff does. This was the first thing that the minute I watched it, yep, I'm watching the show, and that was it, and I was hooked. So I'm glad I've watched every episode, and I don't regret that time being, watching the show. So
yeah, I'd agree with you. I think the only other time I really, really felt like I was immersed in Star Wars was when Force Awakens first came out. And there are many reasons for that. We've discussed them before. A lot of it had to do with the way they built it up with the trailers and the Chewie.
Well, yes, all
Chewie
that.
Were home, all that shit.
Yeah,
I felt like we were finally coming home.
Right.
And I know we've been up and down. I've personally been up and down with a lot of the shit within the Star Wars universe. And for this to come out and hit me the way it did, it told me that maybe we had a little bit of a rocky start bringing everything back under the Disney banner. But it gave me a lot of hope. Even gave me a lot of hope going into Rise of Skywalker. Because when I was watching Mandalorian, I was like, you know what? If all the creative behind it can kind of gel this together, there's hope for what they're going to do forward.
Just give it to Favreau. That's what I say at this point. Give it all to him.
I'm telling you, that's one of my other predictions. And I've been wrong before, but I really think that when they kind of make the announcement, okay, Kathleen Kennedy's stepping down, it's going to be him.
B-dubs.
It's going to be him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, yeah, to your point, this was the first time I felt completely immersed in a Star Wars universe. Yeah. The nods, the Easter eggs, all the little shit that... Dumb shit that he answered that you're like, really?
Yeah.
Like, stupid shit.
But, he's done that consecutively with everything he's ever touched. Any movie he's done has been good.
Yeah.
And he's like Josh Whedon.
I take issue with that because of Elf.
Well, if you don't like Elf, that's
you
fine.
You shut your poor mouth.
But you know what?
I loved Elf.
It was for what it was a good movie.
I'm just fucking.
I
don't like that movie, but
well, I'm not a fan of it. But the thing is, he knows how to tell a story. and he's just like Josh Whedon is in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
You know, and okay, you've given that to him. Favreau needs to take over Star Wars. Fuck everybody else. Let him handle it, because obviously he knows what the hell he's doing.
There's truth to that. I could see
it's amazing.
Favreau and Filoni could run the Empire easily.
All right.
So
last bit. Where we go from here? Season 2.
I'm worried about
next fall.
I'm worried about Karga and Kara. At this point.
We dropped one picture. I say we because Eric dropped shit in our name, so I think again I always say I thank God for Eric because he just kind of like keeps shit running in the background.
Right.
He dropped on our website. He dropped that one shot that Favreau dropped on Twitter of the Gamorrean guard.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
No.
Yeah. Oh, let him find it.
Oh snap.
Yeah. It was just Favreau saying, "Hey, season 2 is coming, fall 2020."
I've seen the news. I didn't see any pictures.
And that's all his Twitter really said. And then there was one picture, and I'm trying to really slow down a stall for.
I'll find the picture.
Okay,
go ahead.
But it was a Gamorrean guard that kind of looked. Yeah, it was a different look. So it made you wonder where the fuck we're going, whatever. And Eric dropped it on our website, on our Facebook, just retweeting what old Favreau said. And a lot of people already jumped on our shit and was like, "Oh, we love this, blah blah blah, whatever." But so in the meantime, while he's looking it up, where do you think we go from here?
Like I said, Karga and Kara, I think, are in trouble because you have what do you call? I have lost my train of thought. Gideon, who's alive on the planet, not too far away, and they're the last two of the remaining group of people that fought him are there. So obviously, they're either going to get hurt. Oh snap! Look at that. That's like the Arnold Schwarzenegger of Gamorrean guards, man. It's like hit me here, hit me right here.
I work for Jabba.
But I think with Gideon being right there, that's his first plan of attack is to either capture them or kill one of them.
And I wonder if that would bring us to the first couple of episodes of season 2. But it's the reason that brings Mando back in touch with everybody else. Because he's left them now, right?
Yep.
And there's a reason. Because I keep saying, him with that ship, he's going to have a group. It's not just going to be him and the kid. In the long term.
Right.
I don't see Kara being gone too long. I think she's going to wind up being with him a lot. We never touched on the best moment of the whole fucking episode. When they're in the middle of the fight, and Grief goes, "Let's make the baby do the magic hands.
The magic hands.
Do the magic hands." And he's waving his hands.
Yeah.
And Yodelorian just waves at him. Best fucking moment of the whole episode.
We also skipped over the part where the armorer beat the shit out of a bunch of stormtroopers with a hammer and tongs.
Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Best fight scene in about a week and a half.
And she shatters.
Because you really think she's done.
Yeah.
You think she's done.
Yeah,
she's cornered, she's done. And then she just wipes them all out.
There's like 4 or 5 of them that are surrounding her with blasters, and she's like, And she takes them all out with a hammer and a pair
tongs.
Of tongs, yeah.
Throws one in the fire, which I thought was awesome.
That was amazing. She fucked them up. But yeah, the best moment of the episode was, let's get the baby to do the magic hands. Come on, baby, magic hands. And the baby's just like, the fuck you talking about?
Again, the thing that these people know very little or nothing about the Force is really what makes this show.
It is, and the comedic timing, that Jon Favreau has, where he drops the comedy just in the right moments where you're like, holy shit, that was funny.
This is back
that
to
moment
Lucas
was
days.
fucking hilarious because they're right in the middle of like getting killed, and he's like, I've got a great plan, and it would have worked, but this kid's got no idea what he's talking about. He's like, whatever, hi. Fucking magic hands. Fucking priceless.
Magic hands.
So, good. All right. Going on to season 2. Sorry.
Season 2. I'll tell you what I think without making any firm predictions. Of all the stuff that I published on the website about predictions for this season before it was over, there's one thing we haven't seen yet, which there were very subtle references to throughout the show. and there is an Imperial base. This is totally Legends now, but it was from a story that Peter Schweigoff wrote for Star Wars Adventure Journal, and they threw a couple references to it in the show. But there's an Imperial base on an Outer Rim planet called Varissa.
Okay.
And it's like a deep underground. It's got crazy defenses. I kind of wonder if Moff Gideon isn't from that base, and that's where they've been hiding out, and that's where he's been keeping his giant complement of troops and weaponry and everything.
Okay.
Because everybody on Navarro seemed to think, there's no Imperials. They're all gone now. So if they had a base on Navarro, I feel like that's a stretch.
Right.
They had to have come from somewhere. So I'm thinking maybe we'll see that planet. And the reason that story is relevant is because it's a Boba Fett story.
Right.
And it's all about him assaulting this base and how he gets into it. And I don't want to ruin it for anybody in case they follow what happened in the story. But it's a really cool assault. Him assaulting a base story, basically, a short story.
Yeah, where Moff Gideon came from was one for me. And then, of course, obviously the story of the Darksaber and what's going to happen there. That's going to be played out.
Yep.
But that was my other thing was Boba.
Yeah,
I don't care what anybody says that episode 5?
Episode,
5. 5 or 6?
5. 6 was prison ship.
All right, 5. The very end, the spurs that you hear at the end, dude comes walking up, someone's tracking somebody. He just comes up and finds the body. That's Boba. That soundbite has only been used with Boba Fett.
Okay.
It's Boba Fett.
You're right that it's only been used with Boba Fett, but I think it was Mando, and I think Fennec Shand is coming back in season 2. And not on the bad guy side, necessarily.
Nah, it's fucking Boba. I'm telling you. Boba is tracking it.
He got out of that Sarlacc pit,
especially
he's ready to rock.
Yeah, I've been saying this from the beginning, especially with now all the other Mandalorians running around, and now you have an enemy that they have clearly established. Yeah, you'll find out. Clearly established that this dude had a major part of taking down the Mandalorians. Boba's going to have something to say about that.
And as much as everybody said that he was not a Mandalorian, they do bring up in this episode that
it's not a race, it's a creed.
It's a creed. And
he was another foundling.
He was another foundling.
Well, what was Django?
No, Django would have been the foundling.
Django would have been the foundling.
And then Boba was his
clone. So
clone.
Boba was his clone, but he thought of him just as his father.
Yeah.
Right.
Probably realized he was a clone at some point, but was like, okay, no, I was raised as this guy's kid.
Right.
I believe what he believed, and he goes back to the Mandalorians and becomes Boba Fett. Yeah.
But that's all legend, and they can borrow from whatever they want at this point. I don't know. For me, I don't even care if Boba Fett shows up or not, personally.
He's coming back.
I won't be mad if he does, but I could do without it, too. I really don't care that much. I tell you what, we're definitely going to see the Armorer again, because she's not dead.
Oh, yeah. No,
she's coming back somehow, some way.
She's awesome, too.
Yeah.
She's kind of hot behind that helmet. Anyway.
Grief
probably like 60 years old. Fuck it, whatever.
Well, it's Emily Swallow, so she's not quite 60, but maybe 50.
Getting closer.
Grief Karga is directing, not Grief Karga, Carl Weathers, is directing at least one episode in season 2 that was already announced. So you can expect that his character will certainly be back. I doubt they're going to bring him back just to direct and not.
Yeah, he and Mando are going to be running down a beach together in some little shorty shorts.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sounds reasonable.
It's a Rocky reference for all you assholes
That's right.
out there.
Little Rocky 3 action. Goes back to the theme song, I'm telling you. Mm-hmm. Sounds like Rocky.
And then I have one other minor theory here, and I don't know how it's going to show up, but Katie Sackhoff, who voices Bo-Katan in the animated series, she posted this about maybe 15 days after Favreau said they started filming. She said, "Gotta say today was pretty much a career high for me. One day soon you'll understand what I mean, but for right now just know it's the coolest thing ever."
Oh boy.
And it almost makes me think that she was on the set of The Mandalorian and she is live action doing the Bo-Katan role. Whether it's a flashback or Bo-Katan is still alive and, maybe Gideon's keeping her prisoner in his base. I don't know. Okay. Some shit like that. But this could be about anything, granted. She doesn't say it's Star Wars. She doesn't hashtag it. But the timing was just so suspect, and knowing what her role is. And
no, I saw you post that, and I was like, oh, you nailed it. Yeah.
I mean, like...
Yeah.
And and she would do fine on screen. She's been an actress. She's been in stuff before. So she would work just fine for the role. She's not just good for a voice.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of actresses, there's Emily Swallow. No, she's like 4 years younger than I am too, asshole. She's not 50.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right, I accept that.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I mean, you can't tell underneath
This
that
is the
outfit.
way.
Yeah.
Oh, I can tell. I can tell.
Humming.
That was a very nice picture you found of her. I feel like.
Yeah. No, there's quite a few of them in there.
All right. So any other
Totally derailed everything.
Yeah. Any other
that's what happens
predictions
when you start looking at pictures.
for season 2?
It's amazing how much pictures translate into an audio podcast.
You have any other predictions for 2? Anybody? Any final comments before we close this out?
No, I think there's going to be a lot of the search for the Jedi. I can't even tell at this point now with how big it is. They'll probably push it out. They won't find too much. It'll just be a couple of seasons of him trying to find Jedi. So where I thought it was going to be kind of immediate because I thought they were going to try to tie it into episode 9. They didn't, which I'm glad they didn't. Because that was already like rushed, kind of without any spoilers. There's a lot of shit going on in that movie, and so there was no time for a Baby Yoda kind of thing. So hopefully that wasn't a spoiler, but that's
I have a prediction that R2 Bro will be back. He will be rebuilt, and he will be completely badass.
I do think somehow, some way, Grief or Kara are going to find like microprocessor from IG-11
and rebuild him.
And they'll put that in R2 Bro.
Or like a reboot of him from Quill's hut or whatever, somehow IG-11's coming back.
I don't know.
He was too cool a character.
There are too many fucking IG-11s floating around or IGs floating around this world where you can just fucking steal one and reprogram it with the fucking droid.
Right.
Now, mind you, there might be a moral issue there, but whatever. I'm good with it.
But there's going to be a droid. I think
gonna
now
be
that Mando
IG
is going to have a
droid.
droid in his entourage from here on in, he's learned the error of his ways, and he now trusts droids enough to let one in. I think it's going to be R2 Bro. I'm sorry. I mean, you can't an R2 unit with arms and legs. You just can't. You can't forget that. You can't.
He was a little rusty though.
But that's what's cool about him.
A lot of carbon scoring up top.
That's all right. I'm good. And he had that badass red color going on, and
they got a lot of work to do on that one.
I'll tell you, he'd be worth it.
Pretty sure.
Let's see how many modders and stuff out there are going to start building R2 Bros.
That would be fun. That'd be fun. Name it R2 Bro. Good.
Yeah. Even if he was static and didn't move,
send us an R2
still
Bro.
would be badass. So.
Right. Yeah. So outside of them trying to find Jedi. And I think Boba Fett's going to show up. That's all I got.
Yoda goes into adolescence.
Well, yeah. That will probably happen, yeah.
We were talking about a whole Groot thing going on.
Small time jump,
Yeah, I think that's going to happen. I think Baby Yoda's going to become teenage Yoda. A lot of teenage angst.
Groot I am.
That's right.
Whoa. Language. Yeah. I get it.
I think that'd be cool.
All right.
Be a completely different Force joke, but anyway.
Yes. What are you doing back there? I want you up front where I can see you. What are you doing back there? Oh man.
No.
Yeah, just went down a real dark alley right there.
You missed the last one.
I wish I had.
We had to edit out a lot. Well, Eric went back and edited out a lot of shit. It got really, really dark.
Oh man!
And it was all Eric's family.
Oh man!
I'm already dark to begin with, but once I start to get like twisted up, and spun up in one direction, I'm done.
Car's off the cliff. You're just gonna push it.
Oh so yeah. I Thelma and Louise that shit in a heartbeat. So yeah. All right.
Bring it
so
on.
I guess that's about all we got for Mando. Hit us up. Let us know what you think of the entire series. This episode in particular. Where you think the Magic Hand's going to go. And that's it. Hit us up. whatifgeeks.com. whatifgeeks@gmail.com. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Ray's podcast. Arcade Archives.
TheArcadeArchives.com
Yep.
and the Electric Circus.
You're always tagged on here now.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. We're going to be doing some product reviews coming up. I got my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade one up and a few other things from Christmas that we're going to do some full-on product reviews, so I'm pretty excited.
Well, if you want to, grab some of the equipment here and,
Oh, maybe I have you guys come over and we'll kick the tires. It's only up the street, man.
That'll work.
Give that thing a test run.
That'll work.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Hit us up. Let us know what you think. All right, that's it. Good night, Tony.
Good night, Den.
Good night, Joe Bob. I don't know what I'm supposed to say here.
Sideshow Bob.
Sideshow Bob, that's right.